Let yourself be still now. There is nothing left for you to do tonight. The day is behind you, finished however it went, and it asks nothing more of you. You can set it down the way you would set a heavy basket down on warm sand at the end of a long walk. You can let your shoulders grow soft, and your hands grow loose, and your breath grow slow and quiet, like a small wave sliding up a beach and then sliding back, in no hurry at all. Listen, the story I am going to tell you tonight is an old one, carried for a very long time across a very wide sea, and it asks nothing of you but that you rest. You do not need to remember it. You do not need to follow every word. The words are only a soft tide for you to float upon until you drift off to sleep, and you are welcome to fall asleep at any time. Whenever your mind wanders away from my voice, let it wander. Whenever your thoughts begin to drift, let them drift. The way a canoe drifts when no one is paddling it, turning slowly under the stars. That is exactly what is meant to happen here. Tonight we go out onto the great ocean, the widest, deepest, most patient water in all the world. Picture it for a moment, the way you might picture it from very high up, or from the edge of sleep. A vast, dark sea, gleaming softly under a sky thick with stars, and scattered across it, far apart, a handful of green islands, small and warm and quiet, like stepping stones laid down across the dark by a gentle hand. There is so much water between them. There is so much sky above them, and everything out here moves slowly. The swell rising and falling, the islands sleeping in their rings of pale surf, the night turning overhead without any hurry in it at all. We are going to follow a long journey across that sea tonight. The journey of a traveler who came from a far homeland, across all that dark water, looking for a place to call her own. Her name was Pele. She is remembered as a goddess of fire, of the deep warmth that lives far down inside the earth. But tonight, you do not need to think of her as fierce. Tonight, think of her only as a traveler, weary and seeking, paddling on and on across the wide ocean, island to island, looking for the one place where she could finally rest and stay. She did not come alone. Among those who traveled with her was a younger sister, gentle and bright, whose name was Hiiaka. She was the youngest and the most tender of heart, and she loved green growing things, the ferns and the blossoms and the small soft rains. You will meet her again as the night goes on. For now, it is enough to know that even on the longest journey, Pele was not entirely alone. There was a kind voice near her in the dark, and a small steady company, all of them crossing the great sea together. So let the ocean hold you now, the way it held that long canoe. There was no hurry in their journey, and there is no hurry in ours. The sea was patient, the stars were patient, the islands waited, sleeping, for the travelers to find them. And so may you wait, soft and still and heavy, while the story carries you out onto the dark and gentle water. Before the long canoe was ever launched, there was a homeland, far away across the ocean, in a place the old tellers called Kahiki, which only means a distant land, a place beyond the edge of the world you can see. It lay somewhere out past the horizon, many days and many nights of sailing away, and it was the place where Pele was born and where she lived in the early days, among her own great family. It was a warm land and a crowded one. Pele had many sisters and many brothers, and a mother and a father, and aunts and uncles and cousins beyond counting. all of them powers of one kind or another, all of them living close together in the old homeland across the sea. And Pele, even then, carried fire within her. It was simply her nature, the way some people are born restless, or born loud, or born with a warmth in them that cannot be hidden. She carried a deep heat, the heat that lives far down beneath the ground, and it stirred in her, and it would not let her be still. There are different ways the old tellers explain why she left. Some say there was a quarrel, the kind of quarrel that can happen even in the closest family, where two strong natures rub against each other until one of them must go. Some say she simply grew restless in the crowded homeland, that her fire wanted more room than the old place could give it, that she felt, deep down, the pull of somewhere she had not yet been. But the gentlest way to tell it, and the way I will tell it tonight, is simply this. Pele heard the call of the sea. You may know that feeling, just a little, the quiet pull towards somewhere else. The sense, on certain evenings, that there is a place meant for you that you have not yet found, somewhere out past everything familiar, and that one day you will have to go and look for it. It is not always a sad feeling. Often it is a hopeful one, a kind of longing that is almost sweet, the longing to find the one place where you truly belong. That was the longing that woke in Pele. She stood at the edge of the old homeland, and she looked out across the wide, dark water, and she knew that somewhere out there, across all that sea, was a home that was waiting for her, and that she would not rest until she found it. And so she made up her mind to go. She would cross the great ocean. She would search island to island across all that patient water until she came at last to the place that was hers. It was a brave thing to set out across so much sea toward a home she had never seen and could not point to. But Pele had fire in her, and fire travels. And fire does not like to sit still in a closed room. She would go. Let yourself feel only the hopeful part of that tonight, the setting out, the choosing of a journey. There is something restful, strangely, in deciding to go and find your home, in turning at last toward the thing you have been longing for. You do not have to find it tonight. You only have to drift, the way Pele drifted in her thoughts at the water's edge, looking out at the dark sea and the scattered stars, knowing that somewhere across all that gentle water there was a warm place waiting, just for her. And think, for a moment, of how it must have felt to stand there on the last evening before the journey began. The warm wind off the land at her back, and the cool wind off the sea on her face, and between them, in her own heart, the long, slow lean toward the water. She did not know how far she would have to go. She did not know how many islands she would have to pass, or how many worm pits she would have to dig and lose, before she came at last to the one that would hold. She knew only that she had to go, and that the going itself was already a kind of homecoming. The first small step of it, the turning of her face toward the place that was hers. That is all any journey ever asks at the start. Not that you see the end of it, only that you turn toward it and take the first soft step and trust the wide, patient water to carry you the rest of the way. So a canoe was made ready for the long crossing. Picture it now, drawn up on the dark sand of the old homeland in the cool of the evening, a great voyaging canoe, long and deep and strong, built to cross open ocean. It had two hulls bound together side by side, with a platform laid across between them, where the travelers could sit and sleep and store all they would need. and a tall sail woven of leaves to catch the patient wind. It was the kind of canoe that could carry a whole family across the widest water in the world, and it was waiting, rocking gently in the shallows, for the journey to begin. Into the canoe, Pele and her family gathered all the things that travelers carry across a great sea: water in sealed gourds, and food wrapped in leaves, and mats to sleep on, and the small treasured things that you cannot leave behind even when you are leaving everything behind. And one by one, the travelers themselves climbed aboard. Pele among them, and her sisters and brothers, and her youngest sister Hiiaka, the gentlest of them all, who is said to have come along, carried close, small, and beloved, kept warm and safe among her elders for the long crossing ahead. And there is one thing more that Pele carried, the most important thing of all, and you should hold it softly in your mind as the night goes on, because it will matter later. She carried with her a digging tool, a kind of staff or great paddle with which she could dig deep into the earth. The old tellers call it her magic paddle, and they say that wherever Pele struck it down hard enough, the deep fire that lived inside her would follow it down into the ground and open a great pit, a fire pit, a hollow in the earth where her warmth could gather and rest. She would need that paddle. All across the long journey, she would be looking for the right place to use it. The one place where the pit she dug would not be spoiled, where her fire could finally settle and stay. Then, in the soft dark before the dawn, the long canoe was launched. Feel how gentle a launching it is. When you slow it all the way down, the hands pushing against the hulls, the slow grind of the canoe sliding off the sand, the first lift as the water takes its weight and it floats, light and free, rocking on the small waves of the shallows. Then the paddles dip quietly, and the canoe slides out past the last of the surf into the open swell, and the dark land begins, slowly, to fall away behind. Out they went, onto the great ocean, under a sky just beginning to pale at one edge. The old homeland sank lower and lower behind them, until at last it was only a dark line on the water, and then not even that, and there was nothing all around them but the wide, gleaming sea and the wide, quiet sky, and the long canoe moving steadily out across the middle of it, small and brave and bound for somewhere far away. Let the rocking of that canoe become the rocking of your own rest now. The slow rise as a swell lifts the hulls, the slow fall as it passes beneath, up and down and up and down, gentle and even and endless, the oldest cradle in the world. There is nothing for you to do out here but be carried. The travelers will keep the watch. The stars will hold the way. You may simply lie back on the soft platform of the canoe, in your mind, and let the great sea rock you out under the fading stars toward sleep. Now the long crossing began in earnest, and it was very long and very slow, and the slowness of it is a gift I want to give you tonight. Day after day and night after night, the canoe moved on across the open sea, with no land anywhere in sight, only the great circle of the water meeting the great dome of the sky all the way around, and the travelers small in the middle of it, going on. By day, the sun rose out of the sea on one side and climbed the pale sky and crossed it slowly and sank into the sea on the other side, and the water shone, blue and silver and endless, lifting and falling in its long, slow swells. The travelers watched the light move on the water. They trailed their hands in the cool sea. They slept in the shade of the sail through the warm middle of the day, while the canoe rocked on, and the wind held steady, and the wide ocean carried them gently westward, or wherever it was, the call was leading them. And by night, oh, the nights on the open ocean were a wonder, with no land for 1,000 miles, and no light anywhere but the sky. The stars came out in their countless thousands, thick and bright and close, spilled all across the dark from one edge of the sea to the other, and doubled, faintly, in the black gleaming water below, so that the canoe seemed to float in the very middle of the stars, with stars above and stars below, and the soft dark all around. The old voyagers read those stars the way you might read a familiar road. They knew which star rose where, and which star to steer beneath, and so even far out in the trackless middle of the sea, they were never truly lost. The sky itself showed them the way. Feel how safe that is, when you let it settle over you, to be far out on the wide, dark water, and yet held and guided by the patient turning of the stars. The travelers did not need to see their home to know it was there. They only needed to follow the sky, one steady star at a time, trusting that the long, slow crossing was carrying them, even in the dark, even out of sight of any land, exactly where they were meant to go. You can trust the same thing now. You cannot see where this night is carrying you, and you do not need to. Something patient is steering. You only have to lie still and be carried. And there were sounds, soft and steady, the kind of sounds that smooth a mind toward sleep. The endless gentle wash of the water along the hulls, the slow creak of the lashings as the canoe rose and fell, the hush of the wind in the woven sail, the far-off slap of a small wave breaking against the bow and sliding away. Now and then, the long, sighing breath of some great creature of the sea rising somewhere out in the dark, a whale perhaps, surfacing far off to breathe under the stars and then sinking again into the deep, untroubled, unhurried, sharing the wide night with the travelers and meaning them no harm. And there was a rhythm to the days that smoothed the travelers down into a deep and easy calm, the way a long journey always will, once you stop counting the distance and simply let it carry you, the waking at first light to the same wide water, the slow watching of the sun across the sky, the sharing of food and cool water on the rocking platform, the drowsing through the warm afternoons, the long, quiet evenings as the sky turned from blue to gold to deep, soft violet, and the first stars came out one by one over the darkening sea. There was nothing to decide and nowhere to hurry to. The canoe knew its way, or the stars knew it for them, and all the travelers had to do was rest and watch and trust and be carried. After a while, the wide ocean stopped feeling empty and began to feel like a kind of home in itself, a vast, rocking cradle of water and sky, holding them gently as it bore them on. So the canoe went on, day into night and night into day, across more water than you could cross in all the dreams of a single sleep, and the travelers were patient because there was nothing to do but be patient. And the sea was patient, because the sea is always patient, and slowly, 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 somewhere far ahead across all that gleaming dark, the first of the islands was waiting to rise up out of the water to meet them. But it was still far off. There was no hurry, for now there was only the open ocean, rocking, gleaming, endless and calm, and you, floating out upon the middle of it, drifting towards sleep beneath the patient stars. At last, one clear morning, far ahead across the water, something rose up out of the sea that was not a cloud and was not a wave. It was land. A green island, low at first and then climbing. Its peaks soft with mist, its slopes dark with forest, ringed all around with a pale band of breaking surf. After so long with nothing but water and sky, the sight of it must have filled the travelers with a quiet gladness. And they turned the long canoe toward it and paddled in, slow and weary and hopeful, toward the first land they had seen in many days. In the old tellings, the first of the great islands that Pele came to, as she traveled along the chain, was Kauai, the oldest and greenest of them, far to one end of the scattered line of islands. And there, on Kauai, Pele did the thing she had crossed the whole ocean to do. She took up her magic paddle, her great digging staff, and she went to a high place on the island, and she struck it down hard into the earth to dig a pit, a deep, warm hollow where her fire could gather and rest at last. The ground opened. Down went the paddle, and down after it went the deep fire that lived in Pele, following her staff into the earth, hollowing out a great pit, a place that could have been a home. And for a moment, perhaps, it seemed she had found it, the place she was looking for, the end of the long journey. But it was not, for when she dug deep enough, the cold seawater came seeping in. The island was old and worn, and the deep water found its way into every pit she opened and put out her fire, and filled the warm hollow with the cold sea. Kauai could not hold her flame. It was not the place. So Pele did not despair. She climbed back into the long canoe, and her family with her, and they put out again onto the sea, and went on along the chain to the next island, and there she tried again. She found a high place, and she struck down her paddle, and she dug another pit, deep and hopeful. And again, when she dug deep enough, the cold sea water seeped in and quenched her fire, and the pit she had made could not become her home. So she sailed on once more to the next island and the next. This is the slow heart of the whole journey, and I want you to rest inside its rhythm, because it is a gentle rhythm, even though it is a tale of not yet finding. Island to island, Pele traveled, all along the great chain. To Oahu she came and dug her pit, and the water found it. To Maui she came and dug her pit, and the water found it there too. Again and again, she struck down her paddle into the green high places of the islands, and again, she opened a warm pit that might have been a home. And again, the patient cold sea came seeping in and put out her fire and sent her on her way. The old tellers say you can still see the marks of her digging on those islands, old craters and hollows in the high green land, the places where Pele tried and dug and did not stay. And between each island, there was again the sea, the long quiet sailing from one green shore to the next, so that the whole journey became a kind of gentle breathing. Into an island, and the climb, and the digging, and the warm pit opening, then the cold water seeping, and the fire going soft, and the climbing down again, then out onto the water, and the long, slow crossing under the stars, the canoe rocking, the swells lifting and falling until the next green island rose ahead, in and out, land and sea, trying and resting, over and over all along the chain, a slow and patient rhythm with no harshness in it anywhere, only a traveler going gently on toward the place that was hers. Let that rhythm rock you now, the way the canoe rocked her between the islands, the trying and the moving on. the digging, and the sailing on. There is no failure in it, not really, when you slow it all the way down. There was only a traveler who had not yet come to her place, patiently going on toward it, island by island, pit by pit, never giving up the gentle certainty that somewhere ahead the right place was waiting. Each island taught her a little more about what she was looking for. Each pit that filled with water brought her one island closer to the one that would not. And so she sailed on, southward and eastward along the chain, toward the islands that were younger and higher and deeper rooted in the sea, where at last her fire might find ground enough to stay. Let us slow the journey here between the islands and turn for a little while toward the youngest and gentlest of all the travelers, the sister whose name was Hiiaka. For while Pele dug her fiery pits and searched for a home for her flame, it was Hiiaka who carried the soft, green heart of the journey, and her part of the story is as quiet and tender as a fern unrolling in the shade. She was the youngest of the sisters, the very last born and the most beloved, and she had been carried across the whole great ocean, small and close and kept safe among her elders. Where Pele carried fire, Hiiaka carried something cooler and greener. She loved the growing things of the world, the ferns most of all, the soft, uncurling ferns that grow in the shade of the deep forests, and the bright blossoms, and the small, soft rains that fall on the high green slopes and keep everything living and lush. She was a healer in the old tellings, and a dancer, and a friend to all the gentle living things, and where she walked, the forests seemed to lean toward her, glad. Imagine the two sisters together then, on the long journey, and how well their different natures fit. Pele was the warmth deep down, the fire in the ground, the great heat that builds the islands up from below. And Hiiaka was the green that grows over that warmth once it has cooled, the soft forest that clothes the new land. The ferns and the flowers that come after the fire has made its bed and gone quiet. One sister made the land, deep and hot and from below. The other sister made it green, soft and cool and from above. And between them, fire and fern, they carried the whole life of the islands across the sea. There is an old and tender story that the tellers love, about how much these two sisters meant to one another, and I will give it to you only softly here, the way you might be told the gist of a long tale as you are falling asleep. It is said that when at last Pele found her home, she sent Hiiaka on a long and difficult errand, all the way back along the chain of islands, to fetch a friend that Pele loved, and Hiiaka, who loved her elder sister, went. Even though the journey was hard and long, crossing back over all the green islands her sister had passed, through forest and rain and many dangers, gentle and brave the whole way. It is a story of how far love will travel for the sake of someone it loves. But that is a tale for another, longer night. Tonight it is enough to know that the bond between the fierce sister and the gentle one was deep and old and tender, and that each of them, in her own way, was making the world more alive. So as the long canoe sailed on between the islands, picture Hiiaka there among the travelers, small and quiet, watching the green slopes slide by, loving each island as they passed it, the ferns on its high shoulders, the mist in its valleys, the blossoms along its shores, where Pele looked at each island and asked, "Can my fire rest here?" Hiiaka looked at each island and simply loved it. The green of it, the rain of it, the soft, living beauty of it. And both of those ways of looking are good, and both of them are part of the world. And tonight you can hold them both, the deep warmth and the soft green, the fire far below and the fern far above, as the canoe carries the sisters on across the gentle sea. And picture, if you like, the gentle work that Hiiaka would do once the islands were made. Wherever Pele's fire had cooled and gone quiet, wherever the warm, dark ground lay bare and new, it was Hiiaka and her kind of life that came softly after, in no hurry at all. First, the smallest things, the mosses and the little ferns finding the cracks in the cooled ground. Then the larger ferns, uncurling slow and green in the misty shade. Then the flowering trees and the bright blossoms and the singing birds among them, until the bare new land was clothed all over in soft living green, deep and cool and lush. It was patient work and tender, the work of years and years, the slow coming of green over warmth, of forest over fire. And it is happening still, the old tellers say, on the youngest slopes of the great island, where the new ground cools and the first small ferns come creeping back. Hiiaka's gentle green following, always, in time, behind her sister's fire. Let that softness settle over you now. The cool ferns in the shade, the small rains on the high slopes, the gentle sister watching the green islands pass, loving them as they go. There is a deep rest in that kind of love, the kind that simply beholds a thing and finds it beautiful and asks for nothing. Let yourself be held in it, soft as a fern in the shade, while the journey carries on toward its end. And now, far ahead across the water, the last and greatest of all the islands began, slowly, to rise up out of the sea. It was the youngest of them all, and the largest, the one the people call the Big Island, still being built even now from the deep fire below, its great mountains climbing so high that their peaks were pale and cool against the sky, while their feet stood deep in the warm tropical sea. After all the older, worn-down islands, here at last was a land that was young and high and rooted deep, deep down into the floor of the ocean. Picture it the way the travelers must have seen it, growing slowly larger across the water as they sailed in. Two great mountains, broad and gently sloping, rising up and up into the clouds, so vast and so smooth that the eye could hardly take in their size. Around their lower slopes, dark forests and green valleys and steaming warmth, and somewhere on the wide flank of one of those mountains, though the travelers could not yet see it, there waited a great crater, a vast quiet hollow in the high land, deep and broad and rooted far down toward the fire at the heart of the world. Its name was Kilauea. The long canoe came in toward this last great island slowly, and Pele, standing in it, looked up at those huge young mountains with something new stirring in her, something like hope grown almost into certainty. For she could feel, the old tellers say, that this island was different. The others had been old and worn, and the cold sea had soaked all the way through them, so that every pit she dug filled up with water. But this island was young and high and thick and deep, built fresh from the very fire she carried, rooted so far down into the earth that surely, here at last there would be ground enough, depth enough, warmth enough, for her fire to settle and stay without the cold sea ever reaching it. So they brought the canoe in to the shore of the Big Island and drew it up at last onto the sand, and the long crossing of the open ocean was over. Feel the quiet of that arrival, the hulls grinding gently onto the beach, the travelers stepping down at last onto solid, steady ground that did not rise and fall beneath them. The great mountains lifting up ahead, vast and green and warm, holding somewhere in their high slopes the place that had been waiting all this while. After all the water, after all the islands, after all the pits that filled with the cold sea, here was the land that the whole journey had been for. They had come, at last, to the place where the long search would end. And Pele lifted her gaze from the beach up the long, slow slope of the great mountain, up toward the high places where the clouds gathered, up to where the crater of Kilauea waited, quiet and deep. And she took up her magic paddle one more time, and she began to climb. Let yourself climb with her only in the gentlest way, in your mind. Slow step by slow step, up the warm green slope, with the great sea spreading out wider and bluer below you with every step, and the cool high air coming down to meet you, and the long journey almost done. There is no hurry even now. The crater has waited this long. It will wait a little longer while you climb toward it, soft and slow and nearly home, high up on the broad slope of the great mountain. Pele came at last to the crater of Kilauea, and she stood at its rim, and she looked down into it, and she knew that she had found her home. It was a vast and quiet hollow in the high land, broad and deep, rooted far down toward the warm heart of the world. The air up here was cool and clear, but rising out of the crater came a gentle warmth, a soft breath of heat from far below, as if the deep fire of the earth were already there, waiting, only needing her to call it up. She stood at the rim, the long journey behind her, all the wide ocean and all the worn islands behind her, and she knew, the way you sometimes simply know a thing, that this was the place. This was the home she had crossed the whole sea to find. So Pele took up her magic paddle one last time, and she struck it down, deep into the floor of the crater, the way she had struck it down on Kauai, and on Oahu, and on Maui, and on all the islands along the chain. And down went the paddle, and down afterward went the deep fire that she carried, following her staff into the young, deep earth. But this time, the old tellers say, the cold sea water did not come. This time, the island was young enough and high enough and rooted deep enough that her fire went down and down into the earth and found only warmth to meet it, only the deep warmth at the heart of the world, and there it gathered, and there it stayed, and it did not go out. Feel the deep rightness of that. After so many pits dug and lost, after so many warm hollows filled with the cold seeping sea, here at last was a pit that held. The fire kindled in the crater of Kilauea, soft and warm and glowing, and it settled in, and it made itself at home, deep down in the high mountain, far above the reach of the cold ocean, exactly where it belonged. The long journey was over. Pele had come home. And so the crater of Kilauea became Pele's lasting home. And it is said to be her home still, to this very day. The warm, glowing heart of the great island, where the deep fire of the earth comes gently up toward the light. The old tellers say that when you see the soft red glow rising from the crater at night, lighting the underside of the clouds with a warm and rosy light, that is Pele, at home at last, her long voyage ended, resting in the place she crossed the whole world to find. The traveler who searched island to island across all the wide sea had come, at last, to her own warm hearth, and she lit it, and she stayed. And there is something worth resting in. Here, at the end of all that searching, every island Pele had passed, every pit that the cold sea had quenched, had taught her something and had carried her closer, and none of it had been wasted. Kauai, the oldest and greenest, had shown her that the worn old islands could not hold her fire. Oahu and Maui and all the rest had shown her the same, and each lesson had turned the long canoe a little further along the chain, toward the young and deep-rooted land where her fire could finally stay. If she had found her home on the very first island, she would never have learned how to know it when she saw it. But she had searched and tried and gone on, and so when she came at last to Kilauea, she knew beyond all doubt that this was the one. The long search had taught her exactly how to recognize her home. Picture that glow now, soft and warm and low, rising gently from the deep crater up into the night. It is not a fierce fire tonight. It is a hearth fire, a home fire. The warm and steady glow of a place where someone weary has finally come to rest. Above it, the cool clouds drift, lit faintly rose from below. Around it, the great mountain holds the warmth safe and deep. And far below, the wide ocean still rolls on its endless patient swells. But it cannot reach the fire now, and it does not need to. The fire is home, the traveler is home, and the long search has come, at last, to its gentle and glowing end. And down the slopes, in the cool green forests below the crater, the gentle sister Hiiaka walked among her ferns, and where Pele's fire had made the new land, Hiiaka's green came creeping softly over it in time. The ferns and the blossoms returning to clothe the warm, dark ground, so that fire and fern together, sister and sister, made the great island whole and living and beautiful. The warm heart deep below and the soft green spread above, both of them home at last. So the long canoe was launched, and the wide ocean was crossed, and island by island the traveler searched, until at last she came home. Think of how far it was, and how slow, and how all of it has come now to rest. There was a far homeland across the sea, and a longing that woke in Pele and would not let her stay. There was a long canoe drawn up on the dark sand, and the gathering of all that the travelers would carry, and the magic paddle laid carefully among their things. There was the launching in the soft dark before dawn, and the old land sinking away behind, and then the great ocean, wide and gleaming and endless, day into night and night into day. The stars wheeling overhead and guiding the way. There were the islands rising one by one out of the sea, Kauai and Oahu and Maui and all the rest, and the pits dug hopefully in their high green slopes, and the cold sea seeping in to quench each one. There was the gentle sister Hiiaka with her ferns and her soft rains, carrying the green heart of the journey. And there was, at the end of it all, the great young island rising from the sea, and the long climb to the rim of Kilauea, and the paddle struck down one last time into ground deep enough to hold, and the fire that kindled there and did not go out. The traveler had come home, and now all of it is at rest. The canoe is drawn up on the beach, its long voyage over, rocking no more. The wide ocean rolls on below, patient as ever, its work of carrying the travelers done. The great mountain stands quiet under the stars, holding the warm fire safe in its deep crater, and the soft red glow rises gently from Kilauea up into the night, the warm hearth light of a home found at last, lighting the drifting clouds, a faint and gentle rose. The fierce sister rests by her warm fire. The gentle sister rests among her cool ferns. The journey is over and the home is found, and everything has come to rest. There is a quiet teaching folded into this old story, and it is a gentle one, and you do not have to hold it, only let it warm you as you drift. It is this: the searching was long, and many of the pits did not hold, and still the home was there, waiting all the while. At the end of the journey, every island that could not keep her fire brought Pele one island nearer to the one that could. None of the long crossing was wasted. None of the trying was for nothing. The home was always out there, across the wide, patient sea, and step by step, island by island, the traveler was always drawing nearer to it, even on the nights when she could not yet see it at all. And so are you. Whatever you are still searching for, whatever home of your own you have not yet found, it is out there, and you are nearer to it tonight than you were, and the searching is carrying you, even now, even in the dark, toward the warm place that is waiting for you. But that is the journey's worry, and the journey is over for tonight. There is no more sea to cross now, and no more pit to dig, and no more island to sail past. You have arrived the way Pele arrived, at the warm and glowing place where you can finally rest. Feel the deep warmth rising soft beneath you, like the gentle heat from the deep crater. Feel the cool, quiet air settling over you, like the high mountain night. Feel yourself held, safe, and home, far above the reach of every cold and seeping worry, in a place that will not put out your fire. Let your breath go slow and deep, like the long swell of the patient sea. Let your body grow heavy and still, like the great mountain settling under the stars. The canoe is drawn up, the ocean is crossed, the fire is kindled, warm and low and home. The gentle sister walks among her ferns, and the warm glow rises soft into the night, and there is nothing left for you to do at all. The long journey is over. You have come, at last, to your warm and glowing home. Sleep now. The voyage is ended. You are home. Good night.